Hey there, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Poorly Played Poker with your boy Choppadong. If you notice, we are brought to you by DFS Army, one stop shopping, all thing daily fantasy sports, and the Sharp app sports betting made easy. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the week in review. We're going to talk about the month in review. It's a new week, it's a new month, and we're going to update the 200-hour challenge and show you our 4 favorite hands from the month. So, without further ado, let's get into it right now. As I alluded to in the video, in the intro, we're going to talk about the week in review. Last week was a little bit of a roller coaster. We were up and down. We were down $100 on day one, up 150 on day two, down 50 on day three for a net gain of zero. Zero. A net gain of zero. But that brings us to the last week of January. So starting February, we review the month, what it is, or what it was, or what it will be, and all of the goofy stuff that went on inside the month. We had 9 out of 12 losing sessions. I'll post the graphics and stuff right up here. But 9 out of 12 losses. That's rare. For somebody who wins 75% of their sessions most of the time, 9 out of 12, that's quite the losing streak. Yet we netted a positive for the month. We're up about 140 bucks. That's crazy to think of. And it really only came from one day. We had a pretty awful month results wise. We had a good month play wise. We're not embarrassed by anything that we did. In fact, we tend not to micromanage these stakes anymore. It doesn't do us any good. At the end of the year, our numbers will be there. We just don't know what our big months will be, what our big days will be. And to be quite honest with you, we did it in back to back hands in January, turned the whole month around. We flopped a boat with pocket deuces on deuce 3-3, got paid there. I don't know what the very first hand was before that. Oh, I think it was Jack 10 offsuit into a straddle. We were in the hijack, the straddle, called our open raise. We opened that straddle, which is really weird, a button straddle, got all the way around to the hijack before anybody put any money in the pot. Usually they limp along and call along. We saw Jack 10 offsuit in our hand and thought, well, this guy doesn't have much. Let's put him to the test. We opened to 30 bucks over the $10 straddle, and he called. And I thought, oh, button might have something. What do we got here? Well, we flop top two, Jack 10 6, Jack 10 5, something like that. We go bet, he calls, we go bet, he calls, we go shove, he calls, and he had ace jack, and he got fleeced. A little bit lucky there, but we won the maximum in that hand, and that's how you turn your month around. We also had a pocket queens hand out of position in a 3-bet pot where the flush draw missed on the river, and we bet. I think we check raised at some point in the hand. We bet the river. We got shoved over, and it was kind of a price didn't call. It was only 50, 60 bucks more, so we went ahead and called, assuming we were paying off the flush. Turns out he was on a bluff. So those 3 hands made us about 500-600 bucks. About 2 hours later that same day, we had a massive punter at the table. If you don't know what a punter is, we'll talk about it in the lab today. But the punter threw 200 and some odd dollars cold into a pot all in when we had kings. We called, we won, yeehaw. So that alone made a $700 day, which made our month, and we basically didn't give it all back, even though apparently poker gods were trying to. That brings us to the 200-hour challenge. And the 200-hour challenge, we're 150 hours into it. Another graphic for you. $4,586 on the positive. Pretty good. And $31 an hour. Now, we were clicking along at $40 and $45 an hour. But when you have a 9 out of 12 session losing streak like we had in January, that's going to really calm that number down. Not that $31 an hour is not worth it. It's great. So there you go. Again, like and subscribe to the video. Keep pushing me out there to people in the algorithm, and let's keep making this thing positive, because to be honest with you, we're going to dive into the whiteboard here in a minute. I'm going to walk through those 4 favorite hands with you, and well, let's just go do it right now. All right, we'll see you there. Okay, so our 4 favorite hands of the month. Wait, take the nerd glasses off. We don't need these things for the whiteboard. I'm going to dive in with the hand I probably should have shared first, or last, but I'm going to do it first. This is a hand versus an old man passive, and our reaction to old man passive is kind of like old man coffee. We've all heard that term. Old man coffee sits around, waits for kings, waits for aces, et cetera, and it really only gets aggressive when he's got the nuts. Old man passive is very similar, but he's not as tight, And he gets in there and he mixes it up a little bit more, but he's still very passive, and he draws and draws and draws, and then he lets you know every time when he does not play his draws aggressively before they come in, and he's typically pretty scared of draws coming in when he doesn't have it. So again, they're fairly easy to read and fairly easy to avoid. We don't want to pay them off when they get aggressive. And here's an example, a pretty tough example that a lot of people can't get away from. So we've got our old man passive. We have 3 limps in in succession. Hero finds himself with pocket fives, 5-5. In the small blind, he makes the call. The big blind calls along. We have a 5-way pot now. $10 to the flop, top set. Just flop it right out of the gate. 5 of spades, 3 of spades, deuce of diamonds. Now, we're not afraid of anything yet, but we do see the spade draw out there. We do see 4x is an open-ended straight draw. Spade draw, straight draw, say that 5 times fast. Hero checks. Hero could lead out. He flop top set. But if Hero leads out 10 to 15 bucks into a spot like this, he's going to get called by one person, and then everybody else is going to feel priced in to chase those spade draws. Call, call, call. Hero didn't really do too much to build a big pot or protect his hand in a spot like this. Hero, out of position to 5 people, can probably bank on the fact somebody's going to take a swing at this flop. Maybe not our old man passive friend. Somebody is going to take a swing at it. So Hero decides to check. Under the gun is old man passive, and all of a sudden he bets 10 bucks. And it's like, whoa, that might mean something. So when it gets around to us, there's one caller on the button. Hero makes it 35. Why? Maybe he only made it 30. Hero only made it 30. Let's change that to a 0. Why? Because in this particular case, no, he did make it 35. Man, I'm caught up in my head already. Let's change that back to 35. The reason why Hero check raised here was to build a bigger pot. This guy's not going anywhere. And if this guy has ace-4 or 4-6 or, shoot, if he does have a set of 3s, set of deuces, he might raise us back, and then we can just go ahead and get all the money in. We don't want to get the money in against ace-4 or 4-6, but if they're there, they're there. We've got 2 cards to come. We can draw to our full house and beat the guy. But in this particular case, we definitely want, with the button interested, we want somebody to call. So we're building the pot a little bit. That's why we're a little smaller. We don't need fold equity. We're not going to bet at 50 or 60 bucks and put him to the test. Instead, we're just going to juice the pot a little bit to 35. Under the gun calls, which is interesting. Okay, I guess he doesn't have 4-6. I guess he doesn't have ace-4. He's probably just on a spade draw. Maybe he does take a stab with the occasional flush drop. I didn't think so, but whatever. And then the button folds to that raise. I guess he really didn't have squat. But I mean, pocket 8s, pocket 10s, hands like that are not going to, they may take a stab, but they're probably not going to make that call. Well, maybe they might. So we need to define this range a little bit more. We've got an $80 turn, king of spades. Uh-oh. Now what? Everything got there. Once everything got there, you got all your, you got a straight out there still. Now, the guy doesn't have pocket kings. He would have re-raised pre-flop. So now that we know kind of where we're at, we need to see flush draw. The flush is not going to be able to hold himself back if we bet small. If we bet small and he raises us, we can do some math and see what happens. If we bet big and he raises us, we might have just committed ourselves to a hand that's drawing pretty thin, right? So when we bet 30 bucks into this $80, under the gun just immediately just goes all in, and we're like, whoa! Out of a passive, that's nutted, man. That's the spades. Found them. Now we got to do some math. When we're looking at redrawing to the full house and $230 overbet shove, we might be able to get away from this hand. The math might dictate we can get away from this hand. So what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? We know if he was on spades, he got there. If he's on a straight, we're behind. Can he do this with pocket 3s or pocket deuces? And I don't think this guy can. He would have done it on the flop maybe if he was going to do it. Probably not now that the flush is there, because he's not going to push a weak set into those spades because he knows he's dead, right? So, I mean, unless he's thinking, well, maybe I've got the outs to draw, whatever. The point is, we've got 10 clean outs. How do we come up with those? We got 1 5 left in the deck, 3 3s, 3 deuces, 3 kings. That's 3, 6, 9, 10. We have 10 cards to come that can help us. 1 card left to come out, multiplied by 2 for simple math. We got about 20% equity to hit our hand. So we need about 20% in the odds. We need about 4 to 1 or 5 to 1 on our money on this call of this 230 bucks. We have a $110 pot. Once our 30 bucks goes into it, we have $110 in the pot, and then he comes in for 230, making it a $340 pot, of which we need to call $200 more. So we're putting 200 in to win 540, 340 for the pot, 200 for our call, 540 bucks. We're putting 200 in to win $540. Do the math, it's 37%. 37% ain't 20%. We got to fold. Because there's no more thing to come. In the situations we talk about fold equity, let's say that we had 25% and we both had $1,000 behind, then we could re-raise him over his 230, $1,000 more dollars, and maybe we can get him to fold 8 to 10% of the time. Which, when you take 25%, add 8 to 10%, well, you need more than that. You need about 15% to get over the 37%. If you can get over that with he folds, say, 20% of the time. Well, we got 20% to hit our hand. We got a 20% chance he will fold if we shove over him, hypothetically. That gets us over the 37%. That becomes a profitable play. But because he's all in, we've got nothing else to do but call and do the math. So we have no fold equity because we can't make him fold. He's all in. Therefore, our 37% does not equal the 20%. 20%, our odds of hitting our hand are not greater than what we need in the price of the pot, so we fold. And not many people can fold a set. I'm not in the habit of folding sets. If this guy had, God, this is why it's poorly played poker. If this guy had just raised my 30 bucks instead of jamming over me for 230, if he'd have just raised me to 65, I'm at least calling it. I might rip over him with the set. I'm not going to do that on a spade board, but I will call it and take he would have got a little bit more money out of me. Instead, I folded. He could have probably bet me up to about 100 bucks. Let's do the math with that. If it's only 100 to call, we have a $110 pot plus 100 to call. That's 210. If he puts in 100, I'm sorry, I need to do this a little bit better than that. In my head, I need to get it here. Let's change this to all in for 100, right? We're on a $110 pot with our 30 in there. His 100 makes it 230. We need to call the 100 more. Actually, it would have been 70 more. We would have only had to call 70 more to win. 70 into 230 plus is about 340. So 70 into 2, we would have gotten about 4 to 1, which would have been the number that we needed. We would have had about 20 to 25%. It would have been a profitable call. So because he priced himself out of our market, he cost himself money, overplayed his hand. I don't know what other person pushes a straight. He had ace 4, mind you, ace 4 with the ace of spades. I don't know. Pushing that hand a straight into the flushing card is that's just bad too. So we're not up against wizards here. We're not up against geniuses. All right, our next hand is very, very simple. We're up against a punter, which is a whale, which is a giant, giant fish at the table. It's somebody who's putting a bunch of money in bad, getting it in with terrible hands, and just trying to get lucky, double up, and go home. These guys feed the ecosystem. These are the guys you want to encourage to stick at the table. I've been known to buy them a beer. I'll talk to them. I'll befriend them. And I don't care what kind of person they are, as long as they're not completely mean. I want to be friends with this guy because I want him to stay at the table as long as possible to give me access to winning some of his money. Now, these guys, we're not going to play tricky. We're not going to play fancy. We're not going to try and bluff them. They aren't going anywhere. They're big calling stations. We're going to take a bet approach. We're going to try and get it in, get that money in. We're going to try to overbet the pot size bets, over bets, everything we can to size up and get that money in fast. Yes, sometimes they're going to hit 2 pair on you. Sometimes they're going to hit their gut shot straight on you. It happens. But more often than not, you're building bigger pots faster. You're going to maximize your win rates. Don't play your normal little half pot continuation bet. Just bet the pot. Get that money in against this guy, just like this. Hero is under the gun, raises to 10 bucks with ace, queen of spades. Under the gun is our punter. Under the gun 1 calls, and everybody else folds. To our surprise, everybody fold. We thought we were going to take this pot 3, 4, 5 ways, which with ace, queen suited, we don't mind doing because we're drawing 2 nut-making hands, very, very strong hands. But now that we got this guy all to ourselves, one-on-one, let's do it. Let's go. $20 flop, ace, 8, 5, rainbow. Hero doesn't bet 10 bucks like he might normally do against a sharper player. Boom, comes all the way in for a slight overbet of 25. Let's get that pot going. He's either calling or he's not. There's no flush draw up there. There's not a lot of straight draw type stuff out there. You know, if he's got ace five or ace eight or pocket fives, whatever, so be it. But he's going to put in money with a lot worse. He'll put it in with jack eight, you know, five, four, whatever. He'll keep coming. So we're betting big and we're charging in the max. We get to a $70 pot instead of what would have been a $40 pot, mind you. Jack of hearts, we go in and go kaboom, 75, slight overbet again. We notice when he calls, he only has two little white chips left in his stack. And I say, check dark, just because I'm being a bit of a troll and being a bit, I never check in the dark. I never antagonize anybody. That $2 is going in anyway, right? You're like, that's no big deal. Problem is, he didn't have $2. He had $17. He had three red chips behind him. I just thought we were being goofy for the $2, right? Anyway, the river card was inconsequential. He showed me that he had five deuce offsuit. He called the 25 and called the 75 with just the five. That's a punter. That's the kind of guy you can make a lot of money on. And you need to get all that money in quick. Yeah, you might have got it in by the river yourself anyway, but get it in faster. Instead of a $40 pot headed into the turn and maybe a $20 bet and an $80 pot heading into the river, when you shove and then he folds, whatever, and you miss all that money, you got it in on the turn if you go bet, bet, bet. And that's what I wanted to show you in that hand. That was a fun one. This is not something we do a lot of, is overbetting those pots and overbetting to get more money in, but this is an exploit that you can use when people call too much. Show you the next hand. All right, the next hand that I want to show you is a multi-way pot, massive multi-way pot against the field. The way we react to these hands, we generally, especially when we're out of position, we generally play them straightforward and passive. We're looking to do some check raising. Balance our really, really strong stuff with check raises. If we don't feel like we're in that environment because we're against a bunch of passive opponents, we might just lead out when we're out of position against these guys and build a pot ourselves. Kind of mixtures in between. But we realize that in these massive multi-way pots, that a single pair hand isn't often going to be the winner. So we're not going to go crazy yet when we flop top pair, top kicker, or something like that. We're going to sit, we're going to wait, we're going to let the action develop a little bit. It's just a little bit, play a little pot control and not. We'll win some small pots with some weakness. When it gets shown, we'll win some really, really big pots when we're drawn to the nuts and we get there. Those pots, again, just are kind of straightforward, bingo, kind of playing with your kids for M&Ms and Oreos kind of thing. In this particular case, though, I want to discuss the under the gun raise to $10 with 6, 7 of spades, because if you look at the charts, I might put one here. When you're raising from under the gun +1, early positions, you're basically playing very, very tight. Your ace kings, ace queens, maybe some of the suited broadways, suited aces, big pocket pairs. Because when you hit a flop, you're going to want to raise from under the gun and hopefully not get a bunch of callers behind you. You don't want to be in these pots too terribly often. But we also want to be able to flop a decent hand out of position and keep the foot on the gas. And we can't do that with jack 8 offsuit. We have to be doing it with hands that make strong hands with strong kickers that can find themselves dominating the people that will just chase their draws and call along. So be that as it may, we do balance our hands sometimes. When we're playing in a very, very regular playing pool, we want to throw a little bit of a wrinkle in there once in a while. Some of those suited connectors, baby pairs, suited aces, we will erase those on occasion just when we do show it down, just to show the regulars at the poker table that we don't always have aces and ace king when we do this. Now, we don't care if we are traveling out of town and we're in a place we never go, if we are in a game that doesn't pay any attention to any of this stuff. We don't care in those cases. Instead, we're just going to probably play these. They don't play that well out of position in multi-way pots unless they flop an absolute monster, which is rare. So we will largely just want to pitch them because then we are balancing for no reason. It's really just an excuse you're just not admitting to yourself that you're bored. You know, we're going to play smart. We're going to try to play. No, here we're a very regular table with a lot of regular players. So we raise 6, 7 of spades under the gun to $10, and we get 3 callers, which is pretty par for the course. $40 flop. Now we need to raise bigger. And if we had aces, we'd raise to 15, 18, whatever it takes. But these little bitty ones, if it goes multi-way, we'll just play it that way and whatever. $40 flop, 8 of spades, 5 of clubs, 3 of spades. We've got our gut shot to the 4 with 6, 7, and we've got our spade draw with spades. Not a great spade draw, but we've got a spade draw. So we lead out for $15. We're not going for a check raise here. Don't need to build a big pot yet. Going for Just a regular bet to see what happens. They may all fold. One or two may call. We may thin the field a little bit. We could have gone a little bigger, 20, 25 bucks. But again, no real need to do that. They're calling with pocket nines, pocket tens. They're calling with all their spade draws. They might call with, I don't think they're going to call with king, queen, king, jack, stuff like that. They will definitely raise us with pocket threes, pocket fives, pocket eights, hands like that. And they'll try to build a big pot because, again, they ace four, four, six, those types of hands that are out there, well, ace four. Those types of hands that are out there, not the hands that aren't made yet, but the hands that are made, they're going to raise and they're going to tell you right where you stand right away. To my surprise, every single person called. They all called. I was like, holy cow, what the hell just happened? I'm thinking of spades. Somebody's got spades. My spades aren't good anymore. I probably should have checked the $100 turn on that five of hearts when the board paired, but I thought, there is a chance they'll give me credit for the five. They might. A couple of them may fold. If nobody raises me after another small bet, oftentimes they don't have anything they can handle a big bet on the river with. They're not trapping you. Pocket eights might be trapping you. Pocket threes might be trapping you. Quad fives might be trapping you, but not much else. If the spade draw misses, you can probably get away with bloody murder on that river with a great big bet, as long as you're not doing it into all four people. You get it down to just one dude, you can blast him off his hand usually quite often. When I bet the $35 to test that and kind of go small again, boom, they all called again. And I went, what on earth? So the odds of a five being in there aren't great. He should have raised. He'd have been afraid of the spade draw, right? He didn't. Nobody raised. We're like, oh boy, now what do we do? But we know our spade outs are not good. We know they're chasing something. So it's like, I guess we need a four. So bink, we get our four. Right there on the river, $240 pot. We lead out for 50 bucks because we're just like, no spade draws are going to call. What is going to call? Maybe an overpair, maybe two pair, but what kind of two pair out? There's really not a lot that's going to call us. So we kind of go small instead of going really, really big. We don't want to own ourselves into pocket eights, pocket threes, and whatever else. If somebody slam dunks over us for 200, 250 bucks, we can get away from this hand too. So we just kind of throw the 50 bucks out there to see if we can't get called by something. We do. We get called by pocket jacks. Old man passive calls us with pocket jacks. That's a terrible, terrible, poorly played poker. It's terrible. Because with those pocket jacks, he put in a raise. He did not re-raise the 10. He should have re-raised it to 35 bucks or something. He didn't do that. And then he called the 15 instead of protecting his hand again, and he called the 35 and he called the 50. That's 50 and 35 is 85 and 15 is $100 more we got out of pocket jacks because he didn't play his hand correctly and re-raise pre-flop like he should have. That's on him. The 5x hand, I think it was ace 5, was another passive player that hit trips and didn't raise the turn. Got an extra 50 bucks out of him. He should have taken this 35 and raised it to 110 or something like that. He didn't do that. So we took another 50 bucks out of him. And then ace 4 of spades was chasing the whole time. That was our spade draw. If we'd hit our spade, we'd have been not good. And he folded to the small bet, even though he had a pair. And he was kind of going, well, I wish I would have called with the pair. No, you don't. You were dead. You were dead the whole way, and you should have known that. But sometimes they don't, and sometimes they do call. And that's the source of a lot of our money at these stakes. My point is, we got very lucky here. It made for a very, very fun hand. And we got called by a lot of worse stuff that played their hands poorly, which allowed us to play our hand pretty well. We didn't play it perfectly. We could have bet a little bit differently here and there and optimized our winnings. But because we're not great either, but we're playing with people that are worse than us, we won a big pot. Let's go on to the last hand, and we'll let you go. Okay, so for the last hand that I'm going to show you here, we're going to go up against another old man passive. Sensing a theme with the games that I play in. Ace 4 suited from the last hand that I just showed you, the guy that made the fold. He doesn't raise his draws. He doesn't bet his draws. He doesn't, just showed me that, right? We can use that information if we're paying attention at the poker table. He rose under the gun, raises to 10 with ace queen suited again. I guess that was the hand of the month. Mid position calls, the small blind is the old man passive, and he makes the call. $30 flop, ace of clubs, 8 of clubs, and 3 of diamonds. Yes, we have a club draw out there. We're going to bet out 20 bucks, a little bigger than usual. We usually bet 10 to 15 bucks there. We bet a little bit bigger. We've got the ace. It's fine. Nobody's going to pick up on that little bit of a sizing till we get a fold from the mid position, and then the small blind check raises us to 65. Why would you do that? Are you afraid of the club draw? Because we know you don't have the club draw yourself because you didn't take the opportunity to raise your draw in the last hand. So you tell me you don't bet your club draws, but yet you just check raise me. Okay, let's go through. Aces, not in there. Kings, not in there, because they would have re-raised this pre-flop for sure. Pocket threes, maybe. Pocket eights, maybe. Ace eight, maybe. Ace three, maybe. Ace king. Old men don't like to raise ace king, and I'll show you here in a minute. That's when we'll end the video. I'll break down why you should be raising ace king. But he had ace king offsuit. This is a nutted line. This is not a bluff. This is D's nuts, screaming right in your face. If he just called, look on this board, he's afraid the clubs are going to get there. If he was less afraid and he just called my 20, he could check raise me on a safe turn. He could, I'd still get away from the hand probably against him because he's not doing this with a bluff. His answer should be he needs to start doing this with 6-7 of clubs. He needs to start doing this with king 10 of clubs. He needs to start playing those hands this way, and then maybe I'll not know where I am the next time against him, and I'll call off with ace queen and pay him more money. Plus, and the first few times he does it, if he doesn't show me that he's got, king 10 of clubs, then I'm going to fold ace queen to him, and he's going to get a bluff through and steal more money from me. But they don't adjust like that down here at this level. Let me show you why you should be playing aces and kings and ace king the same way, because this is absolutely fundamental to low stakes poker. We have our pocket aces. We have 6 combos of those. We have 6 combos of kings. We have 6 combos of any pocket pair that we want, all the way down through deuces, right? How many how many combinations of ace king are there? Well, the suited variety, there are 4. The off-suited variety, there are 12, for a total of 16 combinations of ace king, right? So when we have 16 versus 12, if you just play your aces and your kings this way, you've got 12 combos of that. That balances perfectly with the 16 bluffing combos of ace king. If you just play ace king like you would play aces, somebody raises, you re-raise them. Somebody bets you, 3 bets you, boom, you shove over the top of them. If I raised 15 bucks and you re-raised me to $50, what would I do with aces? Well, a lot of times these days, guys are like, I just want to get called. So they raised to like 110, 100. That's weak sauce, man. Don't do that. Slam it into them. Slam it into them. They're not getting away from a lot of hands that they would normally. They'll be thinking that you're bluffing. Well, sometimes you are. That's solver approved for you GTO wizards out there. That 4-bet over the top, when I raise 15, you bet 50, and then I come over you for 200 bucks or 400 or $500, all the way in with ace king. That is solver approved. Why? Sometimes you get called by kings or queens, and guess what? You're flipping. That's the classic pocket pair versus an unpaired hand is a 50-50 flip, right? Yeah, sometimes you find yourself against aces and kings, but with your kings, you can actually draw out with that ace. But with your king, yeah, you're likely dead. If they call with jacks or tens, which some people do, you're in good shape against all of those because you're flipping. And if you get queens to fold or get jacks to fold, or heaven forbid, you get kings to fold, then you just won yourself a whole big old pot with that. And you keep them, they don't know. When you do that, as long as you do it with aces and kings, you need to be doing it with these hands too. Same thing. If I've got aces, and you've seen me do this with ace king, I raised to 15, you re-raised me to 50, and then I come in, boom, for $400 with aces. You're going to look at me and say you overplayed your hand. And I'm going to be like, well, you didn't know if I had ace king, did you? That's why you called that off. Boom, they're going to call you with a whole truckload of stuff, and you're going to win a big pot. That's where the balance comes from. Let's say you play queens that way too. Let's go ahead and add queens in there, and you're sitting on 18 combos. Still balanced. Still balanced. So if you play your aces, kings, and queens the same way you play ace king, it's not the hand that the old men say, well, not a pair yet. It's the best drawing hand. It's the nut non-pair. For all of that. That's all stupid shit. Don't talk like that. You need to be playing that hand aggressively, because what you really want is you want these giant pocket pairs to get paid. And they don't get paid if you don't balance it out, because otherwise people like me are going to sniff it out a mile away. I bet to 15, you raise to 50, and I go, aces. You know why? Because you don't ever 3-bet your ace king. You don't ever 3-bet king 5 suited. You don't ever 3-bet 7, 8 suited. So the minute you 3-bet me, it's queens, kings, or aces. Occasionally it's ace king suited, but if it's only ace king suited, that's only 4 combos balanced up against 12 to 18 combos. You're out of balance. most of the time you're here, you're hardly ever here, I can still go ahead and fold and go ahead and just let you have the damn pot. You just told me where you're at because you're not balancing with the appropriate amount of bluffs. Again, the intermediate strategy. If you guys want more advice like this, if you like playing FanDuel and DraftKings, here's your min. If you like sports betting, Sharp app is your friends. If you like poker talk, you need to come into our free Discord. You need to like and subscribe to the channel down below. You need to comment. We can talk. And I'll send you a link into that Discord, and you can talk in more detail here. We can show you more concepts like this. But the more hands we play poorly, the more we're going to run into little bitty concepts like this along the way, and we're going to make everybody a better player through my poor play. So thanks again for watching. Stay tuned. We'll do some hand of the day next week, stuff that's not going to make the overall weekly review vlog, and we'll take it from there. Hopefully you like what you're seeing, and we'll talk to you on the other side. See ya.